Good morning. I guess good morning, what's left over. It's almost noon. If you weren't at service with us this past Wednesday night, just fill everybody in on. We're starting this back up with Sunday school lessons for the adult class. We're going to be online. We're going to get that going again. The only service we will actually be having in the sanctuary will be Wednesday nights. Wednesday nights at 7:30, and the Sunday services will be this for Sunday morning, Sunday night. I might do something else on the internet, post a video or something for Sunday nights of myself. But heads up to everybody with small kids. Wednesday night, the kids will go do their Sunday school lessons. So we want to make sure the kiddies get everything out of services that they can get. And we still want everybody to bind together, pray about all this stuff going on with COVID-19. And it seemed like we were getting a handle on it, and then its numbers is climbing back up. So the very hard decision was made. We didn't want to do this. We didn't think that, oh, it was just so great before, we want to do it again. No, we don't like doing this. I've been over here for... Sister Sheena came over here with me to get everything set up, and she said, okay, you're ready, and she left. Well, then I realized I didn't have the lapel on, and I didn't want to have to yell at the camera and risk nobody being able to hear me. And I walked back to the sound system, got it, turned everything on, and turned around and looked, and the screen was blank, and came back up here. The charger had come unplugged, the laptop had died somehow in just those few moments, and got it all hooked up, turned it on, and nothing, the keyboard wasn't syncing up to the laptop, nothing was working, and I've been fighting with it for the last 10 to 15 minutes. And but it's all good, it's okay. We got it going, and everything's fine. We're going to go ahead and start this lesson. Still continuing in the summer of 2020. Quarter coming from the Pentecostal Publishing house. I can never remember the name of this thing. This is the Word Aflame curriculum. I'm glad they printed on that so I can find it so quick. The title for the quarter is that God is faithful. This morning's lesson is a reminder that God sees all. Those three words pretty much plug it all into place. Ain't nothing I can add to it. Our focus thought is because God sees all things, we should seek to please Him with our actions. Focus verse, 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 20. And Ahab said to Elijah, hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. Now, if you have your book, and I hope you do, because we do this, and we're hoping that you still do this just like Sunday morning. You take some time out of your day to just sit down, watch this video with your lesson book in hand, and we'll go over it together. It's pretty lengthy reading right here for the lesson text, so bear with it. 1 Kings chapter 21, verses 1 through 7 to start off. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it, or, if it seem good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. And Naboth said to Ahab, the Lord forbid it me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. Now, before I go any further, and it came to pass after these things, we'll get into that in a little bit, and it's very, I say this every week, something just sticks out to me that's very interesting. That's kind of my little thing that just really had me in awe. Verse 4, and Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed, and turned away his face, and would eat no bread. And be a little crybaby. But Jezebel his wife came to him and said unto him, Why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, Because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said to him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise and eat bread. Let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. Skips a section of what she does. So we'll wait and just save that for later. But skips on to verse 17. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he has gone down to possess it. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine. And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. And then he went on to deliver the message. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. In the culture connection, God is a God of details. It talks about a woman going through some things, but as we see a lot of times, even in our lives, turn of event after turn of event after turn of event, God's always there because God sees the details of what's working out around us. It says that Wendy's husband passed away unexpectedly while they were pastoring. After gaining the strength to move on with her life, she moved to New York. The move was a good change, and God provided her with a nursing job at which she excelled. Wendy's son Keith had been waiting for a heart transplant for almost 4 years, but he had no way of acquiring the level of care he would need after the surgery. So one day while Wendy was in town visiting, she asked him, Am I going to need to come here for you to get your transplant? Keith was quite startled, and in his gentle, kind way, he responded that he would never ask her to make that sacrifice. As they were talking, the pastor walked over and joined the conversation. After hearing their conversation, the pastor told them of a recent meeting he had been in. That very week, a group of church leaders that had been trying to formulate a plan to get Keith the help that he needed. They decided it would only work if they could somehow get Wendy to help, but she would need to quit her job in New York and move back to the area. Within 2 weeks of that conversation, Wendy was offered 2 jobs. Both made it possible for her to work from home and move back to help Keith through the transplant process. Within a few months, Wendy moved and Keith's transplant was a success. God sees the needs of his people, and when we seek to please him and care for one another, he works out all the details. The very first contemplating the topic talks about a shipwrecked survivor, and the story goes on to tell, like you can imagine, a survivor washes up on an uninhabited island and looks around, tries to find a way to, scans the horizon for help, prays to God to help him, send him someone to rescue him. And after so long, he just kind of accepted the fact that he was going to live on this island for the rest of his life alone. And he began to kind of thrive. He would figure some things out, and he built him a little hut and started making him some tools and things to help him get by a little bit better. And he kept these things in that hut. He'd go out scavenging for food, getting fresh water, and come back to his hut, cleaning it. Maybe he'd find him some kind of way to catch some fish in some little shallow coves maybe that was somewhere around the island. And One day on his way back returning, he noticed smoke and coming from his campsite, and he run in to find that the hut he had built was just completely engulfed in flames. Just everything he had, what he had built, other than what he had on him, was now gone. He was starting over from scratch, and he kind of cried out, you know, God, how could you do this to me? How could you let this happen? Sound familiar? He couldn't believe that God would allow this to happen, and that he had gone, everything else had already gone wrong in his life, and now the one last thing that he was able to build and put together was now gone from him. I'm going to check this camera out while I'm telling this story, just to make sure it ain't went crazy. Nope, we're good. Okay. Well, a little while later, the man begins to hear something. And what he's hearing is a boat coming closer and closer to the island. And when it gets to him, there's some sailors on it, and they were there to rescue him, to take him back home. And he asked them, he said, how did you guys know to come find me? And they told him, we saw your smoke signals. You know, that right there, sometimes what we think is God just destroying our lives, what we think is just Him responding out of anger, is actually Him aligning us in a perfect way to receive the help that we need. Now, in our humanity, we may forget that God is not limited by what limits us. Our human eyesight is limited. It's limited by barriers, walls, doors, horizons. There are things that get between us and what we're trying to see, but those things that block our vision don't block God's. He's omniscient. Now, looking into, like we talked about our vision being limited, the research process, I understand it has become a whole different ballgame with the internet. I can still remember in my early years of high school, but especially in middle school, if I had to write a paper on something or do any kind of project, I was limited to what books I could get my hands on, whether it was there at the school, if it was at the county library, wherever I could go to try to get that information. I was limited by what books I could get to. But now we seemingly have an unlimited amount of information by just going to Google. You can look anything up, you can Google a topic on to write a paper on, and you would receive more information than you're able to read in a lifetime on what you're looking into. But even as expansive as that knowledge is, God knows more than Google does. There is nothing unknown to God. Not one single thing. Isaiah 40:13-14 says, who hath directed the Spirit of the Lord, or being His counselor, hath taught him? With whom took he counsel, and who instructed him, and taught him in the path of judgment, and taught him knowledge, and showed to him the way of understanding? Who showed him? Nobody did. He was already there. He already knew. Everything that we have is from God having that knowledge, Him having understanding. And He's there to give us counsel. He's there to give us judgment. In Psalms 139:15-16, it says, my substance was not hid from thee, when I was made in secret, and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being unperfect, and in thy book all my members were written, which in continuance was fashioned, when as yet there was none of them. I want to make sure I got notes and stuff wrote down everywhere, and I don't want to miss nothing. I want to try to get this out the best way that my limited amount of knowledge can get out. God knows all things. What does omniscience mean? Sense. I'm probably butchering all these words. It's defined as the state of having total knowledge, the quality of knowing everything. Sometimes we like to think that we know everything, but we got to remember we're limited, God is not. For God to truly be sovereign over His creation, He has to be all-knowing. The Bible tells us His knowledge is so vast, He even knows the very smallest of details. He knows how many hairs are on our heads. He knows how many grains of sand are in the shore. All the sparrows that fall. He knows what tomorrow holds. Think about that. He knows what tomorrow holds. You know, we're not supposed to take any thought about what tomorrow's going to be. We could try to plan everything out for our life over the next day, next week, 2 weeks, month, year. Having a plan is good, and working that plan every day that God allows you to work it is good. It's great. It what keeps productivity going. It's what keeps you going. It's what can keep you driving. It's what a lot of people, when they feel like they've lost everything, but yet they have some type of passion. They have something that still gives them the reason to keep going. So having a plan is not a bad thing. Don't go as far as, I'm not even going to plan out what I'm going to have for dinner tomorrow, because God says don't make a plan about nothing for tomorrow. Let Him hold it. Well, yes, let God hold tomorrow. But don't be afraid to have a plan. Live your life like God could come back today, but also at the same time like you're going to live another 100 years. Does the fact that God knows everything bring you comfort or fear? Think about that for a minute. God knows everything you've ever done, thought, said, whether it was on purpose or on accident. God knows it. Does that bring you comfort or does that bring you fear? That brings us fear. The fact that He knows every thought that we've ever had scares us. Everybody. Knowing that He knows what holds tomorrow, if He cares about the smallest of details, as the hair on our head, sand on the shore, birds that's flying around outside, if He cares about all those very minute, small things, it should give us comfort to know that if He cares about that, He cares about the big things too. So in that we should find comfort. Our faith is based on the fact that God does not change and He knows everything. I did miss something, but I'm not going to go back now because it's going to it kind of throw things off. I'll tell you what, I'm going to rewrite a line. What that scripture was talking about, think about it. Before you were even formed, God knew the design of the days that were going to be in your future. Yes, you're a free will agent. Yes, you have the opportunity to make your own decisions. But I like how they worded this. He knew the design of the days. You kind of tailor things and tighten them up a little bit, but still and yet, even in the smallest decisions you make, God cares. So, it should bring comfort to us that He knows everything. Our faith is based on the fact that He never changes and that He knows everything. Hebrews 4:13 says, "Neither is there any creature that is not manifest in His sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of Him with whom we have to do." Nothing is hidden from the eyes of God. You can't build a wall that He can't see. They got thermal imaging now. You can look out pitch black dark. You can look through a scope, pair of binoculars, or anything like that. And anything that's got a body temperature, you can see just throughout the woods or out in the middle of a desert somewhere, and it looks like it's just as empty as it could be. But if a creature is small enough to have a significant body heat to it, it'll pick it up. Now, man, in their expanse knowledge, has developed different types of fabric, different types of material that will block that. You got you a blanket made out of this material and you hit the ground and cover up in it, guess what? It doesn't pick you up. it just works that good. Now, if our thought process, if our abilities are so great, which the Bible does say something about man's knowledge would just get stronger and stronger, and it would get better and better, but still, there are things, see, thermal imaging, oh, it's so great, we can find anything. There's a barrier to it. Anything man-made is going to have its limits. We're talking about a God today that is unlimited in everything that He does and can do, and He also understands that we are flawed, but He loves us anyway. Now, kind of diving now into that, I've chased rabbits, and the lesson's kind of guiding a good foundation. So we'll dive into the lesson text of Scriptures. A little bit about Naboth and his vineyard. Naboth owned a vineyard, all right? Owning land, even in today's time, but especially back in those days, owning land meant you had some form of security. You knew that if nothing else, you had your land. And it comes around. The king wants Naboth's vineyard because it's right there next to him, which means it would be very convenient for him to have. He was going to plant herbs in it. He was going to change it. He was going to do something different with it. And what makes the price of land is based on both its current potential and maybe it's what it could do later. You know, what it might have the potential to become later down the road, what it can be changed into. And that can depend on who's looking at it. Okay, if I looked at a tract of land and it's got a lot of hardwoods in it and it's just wonderful looking piece of property that you could just awe over, I would try my best to leave it untouched. Naturally, I would try to use it as hunting land, and anything I may change or do would be to better the habitat of the game that's living there. However, to an owner of a logging company would see that same piece of land as I can cut the timber, I can make all kinds of money on it, I can rake the stumps up, we can get everything cleared out, make it just as smooth as it ever was, and replant it with pine trees, and in 20 to 25 years from now, I can make money on it again, you know, looking for future, looking for things that you can do. So it depended on who was looking at it of what they would want it for. Current and potential production. What could happen? But see, there was something to Naboth's vineyard that even the king didn't consider. He is only looking at the potential of the ground. Hey, it's a great vineyard. Evidently, the ground is fertile because it's a very productive vineyard year after year. So it's right next to my kingdom. I want it as my uses. So I got to have it. But Naboth had inherited the vineyard from his forefathers, and he understood the price that they had paid for that land. Somebody had worked that land. Somebody had planted those vines. And even still, every year, you know, Naboth and probably some people that he had working for him would go in and trim them back and trim back the vines and get them ready for another year. And he had worked it, he had taken care of it his own self, but it meant more to him because it was his inheritance. For Naboth, there was both a financial, hey, it helped pay his bills, you know, it's what he did for his living, it was what he was. But it also had an emotional value attached to it in that, you know, it was his daddy's daddy's, you know, however far back it may have went. And that meant more to him than anything the king could have offered. The king offered him either the money it was worth or another vineyard that would be worth more, but it simply was not for sale. We have to guard our soul in the same way that Naboth guarded this vineyard, even from someone as powerful as a king that offered him the world for it, if you, the best way I can put that. Ahab wanted the vineyard. Now, remember I said a while ago, that very first scripture that we read, it said something after these things, or something like that. What had happened was God had extended mercy to Ahab right before this happened, and what had happened was, when in 1 Kings chapter 20, King Ben-Hadad was coming up, I think it was Syria, was coming up, and there was a war coming against Ahab, and it looked like Ahab had no chance of winning. However, God told Ahab, I know the outcome looks bleak, but you're going to be victorious. Your armies are going to have the victory. And he did. God gave Ahab the victory. So instead of Ahab being thankful for what God did, he instantly became selfish and started looking around for something else to go after, or something else that he wanted, and just tried his best to obtain it. Ahab offered Naboth the price for his vineyard, and he was denied. You know, a king is not used to that word right there. A king is not used to being denied anything. What did Jezebel say to him when she walked in? Are you not ruler? Are you not king? Get up and be merry. I'll get you this vineyard. She kind of threw his title, his position back at him. Hey, wait a minute. You're the king. Who's going to tell you what you can and can't have? And instead of accepting no, Ahab threw him a little fit and launched into depression that was caused by greed. Just went in, I'm talking just crybaby, throwing a fit, wouldn't eat, just laid around in the bed. Just threw him a good little fit. Now, the enemy doesn't walk up to you and ask, can I have that? Or, hey, I have a better way, you should try this. The enemy just walks up and takes. Our enemy wants to devour the good things that God brings into our lives. He sees God bless us, he instantly begins to try to devise a plan to tear that blessing down, to take it away from us, because he doesn't. All he wants to do is steal, kill, and destroy. Now, spiritual inheritance. What are spiritual inheritance that the devil would like to take away? Well, blessings of life that we have. You have your walk with God, your family. Both of these are precious and valuable. And a lot of the other things that you could think of, the blessings that God could give you, are part of our spiritual inheritance. Like this land was the inheritance to Naboth, we have spiritual inheritance that God gives to us, and the devil would like nothing better than to bargain them away from us. Tries to make deals. Wants, if you just give this up, you can have peace. Look at the way he talked to Eve in the garden. Oh yeah, I know he said that you would eat of the fruit and you would be, you would die, but truth is you won't die. What you would actually do is you would, in a sense, kill God and his plan for you, and you would be a God in yourself and be able to make your own plan in everything that you do. So she was beguiled, she ate the fruit, and it led to the fall of humanity. It led to the world that we're living into today. People want to say all the time, how could God have created a world and allowed it to go into so much chaos? God didn't. Yes, he created it, but the chaos that it's in is just century after century after century of being beguiled by the enemy. This is why this lesson is so important today, and I hope as many people sees it, not because I'm teaching it, but because what it's trying to say. Even when the enemy is devising the plan to try to tempt or try to come at you in any kind of way, God sees the plans of it. God sees what the devil's doing. He sees the plans our enemy's making. He knows what's going on even when we don't. That barrier, that wall that we can't see what's going on the other side of, that curtain that behind the scenes the devil is scheming and he's getting his attack plan, and he's going to come at us in every kind of way that he can think of possible. We don't see it, but God does. That is why, even though the enemy takes, that last slide said, it should comfort us that God knows all. He knows all but still allows us to make our own decisions. Well, why doesn't he just make us mindless animals that just walk around this world? He wants us to choose to love and serve him. That is why he does things operates the way that he operates. Well, if he sees the enemy's plan, why doesn't he show it to us? The truth is, he does. But we get, just like Ahab, sometimes we get so blinded by what we want. Greed causes depression to set in. It causes all kinds of other emotions and other mentalities to begin to work in our mind. We've surrounded ourselves by the wrong people that instead of helping us come out of it, they enable us to stay in. Oh, you just get up, you make yourself happy, you do what you want to do, I'm going to get this thing, I'm going to get this vineyard for you. She begins to devise a plan. She noticed his depression. How could you not? I'm going to say it again, he just threw a fit. 1 Kings 21:5. Why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no bread? Look, I know me personally. You can tell by looking at me. If I get so upset I'm not eating, I'm upset. It's got to be bad. But here he is not even eating because he couldn't have this vineyard. So she sets her plan up. She devises a plan to kill Naboth. She falsely accuses him of blasphemy. Devious letters are written. She puts Ahab's signature on them. She seals them with Ahab's seal, accusing Naboth. She sends out telling everybody they need to put on a fast. I don't really know for sure what that was all about. I guess she's trying to play the God card, and she's just the biggest Christian ever. Her and her husband Ahab worship God for everything that they got. Liar. And Naboth is guilty of blasphemy, so to wash away his sin, we all need to fast, and we need to get a committee up. We're going to set up and talk about this, and then we're going to go down there to that vineyard. We're going to take Naboth outside the city, and we're going to stone him, and we're going to kill him so Ahab can have this vineyard. The thing about this is to think in your mind. One of the most intriguing aspects of this story is Ahab sat back and let it happen. He let a good man be put to death in order to fulfill his own selfish desires. What have we set back at any point in time in our life and let happen because of our own selfish desires? Nobody is innocent. He overrode in that moment what he was doing. He had saw God deliver him out of the hands of an enemy. In a battle, in a war, in a fight, that there was absolutely no way he could have won on just him and his armies alone. God gave him a blessing and pulled him out of it. You're going to get the victory, and allowed Ahab to live another day. So no doubt Ahab knew what he was doing was wrong, but he didn't care. He wanted that vineyard. I could only imagine what Naboth went through when the day they came and picked him up. Because one thing that can get me upset quicker than anything is if someone tell me I said something I didn't say or did something that I didn't do, I'm being unjustly accused. I don't deal well with it. It's the best way I can put it. Now, John 10:10 says, the thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. That's the only thing he come for. He didn't come to see what you have for supper. He didn't come to see how you was doing. He cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and destroy. I am come that they might have life, and doesn't stop there. Adds this next part, and that they might have it more abundantly. Not just that you would have a life that's worth living, not just having something worth having, but that you would have it more abundantly. Sometimes an enemy may approach you with kindness. The devil comes up and seems like he's got the answer to a problem. And he's just offering it to you out of the love of his heart. He just wants to see the best things for you. Offers to bargain to us for what is valuable. He may even offer a high premium price for you to sell out. Oh, I know what you've been doing. I know you've seen things since you've been going to church. And you've seen God's power. You've seen blessings. You've seen healings. You've seen this and you've seen that. But if you just give in to, I can do so much better, you just quit going down there with that bunch of people. They don't like you anyway. They talk about you when you're not around. I'm your true friend. I'm the one that's looking out for your best interest. You need to listen to me and come go with me. We got to watch the way the devil works. Scripture says we are not ignorant to the devices of the enemy. That's 2 Corinthians 2:11. We know, we understand. But the sad thing is, sometimes we still fall for it. Not being an Ahab. We're not saying everybody. This lesson is not saying you're always an Ahab. Sometimes you're the Naboth. You are the person. You understand what you have. You understand that God Naboth's fathers and forefathers had worked and made that land what it was. God robed himself in flesh, walked among man, born of a virgin, bled for us, was beaten for us, hung on the cross for us, died for us, setting up our vineyard, giving us a plan, giving us an inheritance to be had. Land. Well, where's my land at, God? Where's my land? Heaven. That's our land. That's our inheritance. The devil can't have it, but he'll give you everything he can throw at you, hoping he can take it away. The devil being the Ahab. Oh, I want it. I want to have it. I'll give you this. I'll give you that if you just give up. If you just sell out to me. And sometimes the deal just sounds too good to be true, and we like it. But just like what happened here with Ahab, Jezebel, and Naboth, God did not turn a blind eye. The Lord sent Elijah with a swift and terrible judgment, and Ahab would lose his prosperity, and dogs would lick his blood. I'm sorry, but you got to appreciate the poetic justice of in the same place Naboth was stoned. I mean, when people say God don't like ugly, here's one of the examples of that. Now, nothing is hidden. I don't care how hard we may try. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 5 says, "Therefore judge nothing before the time until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness, and will make manifest the counsels of the hearts, and then shall every man have praise of God." God will not turn a blind eye to our wrongdoings or to wrongdoings against us. And he never has before. Now, we got to seek to please God. Naboth was not a sellout. He was concerned with pleasing God. He was concerned with, God's going to kind of upset me if I give up this land. God not only sees the evil acts of our enemies, He also sees our intentions. Now, and one thing I want to look at before we go on to the closing slide right here. Naboth owned a vineyard. King Ahab wanted it not to use as a vineyard, not to use it for what it had been designated to be used for however many years it has been. He was going to tear out all the vines and more or less put him in a vegetable garden. He wanted to make it work for what he wanted. God has a plan for each and every one of us. He cultivates us. He gets us in shape. He gets us in a mentality. He gets us in an available space and time to where we can work in what God wants us to work in. And God has to work hard on that, because we don't always understand what's going on when God's working on us. We fight against Him even when we don't realize we're fighting against Him. And then along comes the devil. He comes in, oh, well, this is just something I want to do. I think, you know what, you've been doing such a good job as this. I tell you what, I think you could be so much better as that. The prestige is better. You would be better known. You could do this, and just begins to tell us things that everybody likes to hear. We, in that moment, have the option to be a Naboth, or we can be a sellout. And it seems like, well, what's the difference if I'm still working, if I'm still doing, what does it matter what I'm doing? We got to remember, God knows everything. God's in all control of everything. So we do what He puts it. He puts us in places for reasons. If He wants you to be a vineyard, you need to be a vineyard. If He wants you to be a vegetable garden, you be whatever fruit God, and I know the fruits of the Spirit, we're all supposed to exemplify those. We're supposed to show those in our life every day. And remember something that we can take every day. Well, God, you don't understand. You don't know what I'm going through. God understands a lot better than we think He does with the struggles that the flesh has with temptation. Do you not remember when Jesus went out into the wilderness and He was tempted by the devil himself? He was on a fast. He hadn't eaten in days. The devil began to turn that stone into a loaf of bread so you can get something to eat. I know you're hungry. But Jesus still stood. He didn't sell out. He used a response that we to this day can still use. It is written. You know, don't try to take on the devil with your own abilities, your own knowledge, your own ideas. You don't take him on. You go at him with Scripture. That is why this book right here is referred to as our sword. It is your offensive weapon. It is also defensive. Oh, that right there. It turns into whatever it needs to be at the time. An axe can be used as something to do damage, but an axe can also be used to chop down a barricaded door in a burning building to get someone out to safety. It can be used in any kind of way. It's just like it, but it can be used to knock somebody upside the head of it. I'm not talking condoning any of those types of actions. But that Bible can tear down those scriptures. You can use the wrong way and tear down twice as much as you've ever built up with the same scriptures. So we have to be careful, and we got to remember, if you do it out of meanness, God sees it, and God's not going to let it go. So, in closing now, Psalms 139:7 says, "Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence?" That is a question we have to answer every day. God, am I going to go from thy spirit, or shall I flee from thy presence? Am I going to go to you, God, or am I going to run from you? To a sinner, this is frightening. To the faithful, it is a great comfort. Because when you know that you have God, you know that you're in His arms, you know that everything's going to be all right. And you know that God's not going to allow evil to go unnoticed or unpunished. Okay? Everything going on in the world right now, no, it might not be tonight, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be no time this week. But the evil that's going on is not going unnoticed. So that's why people of faith seem to kind of have this barrier around them. Yes, we see the news. I understand what's going on. But I also know that all this wrongdoing and all this bad that's happening, I know God is seeing. He is faithful to those who are faithful to Him. And those that are doing the wrong and aren't being faithful to Him will not go unpunished. There will come a day. There will be times when others will treat us unjustly. It will hurt and could cause us to turn aside from trusting God. This has happened before. Don't say that people are writing things that make no sense. But the story of Naboth should be an encouragement to us that God will not allow evil to go unnoticed or unpunished. The knowledge that God watches over everything that happens to us should bring us great confidence in Him. Not fear and worry of what He's going to do to us, but confidence in His power and in His all-knowing grace, His mercy, His all things that are Him. You could go on and on and on and on, but I'm not going to. I'm going to close with that. Normally, when we're in person, this is where I ask if there's any questions or any comments. Feel free, question, comment down, on, this is on Facebook. We'll get with you however kind of way. If it gets kind of deep, we may go to instant messenger, just kind of keeping things as God would want them to be. But we want to ask everybody to continue to keep praying for everyone with everything, all that's going on with the virus. The numbers begin to come back up. I said at the beginning, we're shutting our services back down. We are having one service a week in person at Mount Vernon Pentecostal Church. Wednesday nights at 7:30. Cornerstone Pentecostal Church, Pastor Henry Lamb, they're having 2 services on Sunday. They have one at 11 and they have one at 2 to kind of divide people up. They want to try to go by age groups on that, and I don't want to try to tell you which one age group. Younger people go to one, older people go to another, but I'm not sure which way they want that to go. But I'm sure they will not mind anybody asking to find out. So hope you enjoyed this lesson. Hopefully everything worked like it's supposed to. I kept an eye on that phone while I was going, and it seemed to have worked. So now we're going to close this out, and hopefully it will upload, and sometime between now and maybe later this afternoon, you'll be able to watch it.